What's going on, my fellow Jedi and Padawans? Welcome back to another Jedi gaming video. Thank you guys so much for coming back to the channel, and if you guys are new, welcome. We are back on our Strand build guides for y'all, taking it to our Warlock this time with our new exotic boots in these Swarmers. These things are nasty for creating threadlings everywhere, and we are just unraveling enemies, have instant grenades back, and these little strand bugs running around destroying anything in your path. So starting out, as always, going over our ability aspects and fragments for our Brood Weaver here. We're going to be using our Needlestorm Super with the Healing Rift Burst Glide, as well as our Arcane Needle, which they unravel enemies themselves. Now we're going to be using the Threadling Grenade. This is important for this build because of our aspect that we have on, as well as our boots, using these Threadlings to absolutely destroy everything in our path. Now, because of that, we're going to be using our two aspects that we have. We're casting our Rift, also weaves 3 of those little threadlings for us and deploys them as we cast it, and our Mind Spun Invocation. So right here, we can consume our Threadling Grenade, and it immediately generates 5 of those threadlings. So if you consume that and use your Rift, you have 8 of these little threadlings going around and just doing some crazy damage on enemies because it unravels them as well. And with 8 of them, it can do some pretty gnarly chunks of damage on those champions, as well as yellow bars even as well. Now for our fragments here, we're going to be using stuff that helps us create more of those threadlings. So right here we have Thread of Rebirth. Strand Weapon Final Blows have a chance to create threadlings. We're going to be using 2 strand weapons and 1 void weapon. On top of that, we're going to use Thread of Evolution, so threadlings travel further and deal additional damage, just making all of those threadlings that we're creating by consuming our grenade as well as casting our Rift have way further travel, in my opinion, and they do deal a nice little extra damage. And on top of that, right here, Thread of Generation, very important. When we deal damage, it generates grenade energy, allowing us to have our threadling grenade back pretty consistently because those threadlings do damage. We're doing damage with our weapon, and it's basically giving us it back very quickly with that damage dealt to give us grenade energy. And last but certainly not least, right here, Thread of Finality. So finisher final blows help us create threadlings as well. So this is just another little addition to help us create even more of those little strand creatures running around unraveling everything in its path. Moving on to weapons we'll be using with this build. First off, we got Rufus Fury from the raid, actually, Ruin of Nightmare. Now, this thing comes from a couple different encounters, and we can craft it. On mine, I have Demolitionist and Paracausal Affinity. So Demolitionist, when we get defeats with the weapon, it's going to give us grenade energy, and when we activate our grenade, it's going to reload this weapon. So it's a nice little positive feedback loop for us to get that threadling grenade back very consistency. On top of that, we have Paracausal Affinity, so final blows with energy type matching this weapon's alignment grants increased damage. So when we get defeats with those little threadlings, because they are strand and a darkness subclass, we get a boost to strand and stasis weapons. So this thing with those defeats from all the threadlings also gets a little boost in damage. Now for our exotic, we're using Wave Splitter, so this thing is pretty gnarly in my opinion, with volatile rounds plus of its exotic perk. Collecting Orbs of Power grants a period of maximum power that automatically reloads, and it suppresses targets when we have that sustained damage on a target. So it's very good at wiping out some of those higher damage enemies, especially champions, yellow bars, etc. And finally, right here, we have Circular Logic, another new weapon from the season with Hatchling. So precision final blows are rapidly defeating targets. With non-precision weapon final blows spawns more threadlings. So this on top of that is giving us threadlings just from weapon defeats as well. Now, when we move on to our armor over here, we're going to be running that 100 recovery as well as 100 discipline for our grenades and our rift to come back quickly. So for our mods right here, we're going to be using that Void and Strand Siphon, that dual mod, so we are able to create orbs of power from all 3 of our weapons. We're also going to be using heavy ammo finder and scout, so we can give ourselves and our fellow allies a lot more of that heavy ammo, especially since we're using a heavy with hatchling to create even more of those threadlings. Now, when we move on to our arm right here, we're going to be using Grenade Kickstarter as well as Firepower. So Firepower, those grenade final defeats that we get with our Threadlings from them, will create orbs of power. And when we consume our grenade to create those Threadlings with this double Grenade Kickstarter, we get half of our energy back just from consuming our grenade. So it is very, very easy to get that full energy back, especially with our Fragment. When we deal damage, it comes back fast with that grenade energy. Now, when we move on to our chest piece right here, we're going to be using dual charged up on this, so we can create more of those stacks of armor charges that we can carry by picking up orbs of power. Now, on these exotic boots right here, just the craziness of those threadlings. So swarmers, destroying those little tangled balls also spawns 2 little threadlings for us. So on top of everything that we have, creating those threadlings via our rift, consuming our grenade as well as hatchling, we can shoot those little stranded tangle balls to create even more. Your threadlings also unravel targets that they damage. This counts for all of those, not just the ones from the tangles. Now, for our mods, we're going to be using stacks on stacks, which helps with that charged up. So when we do pick up an orb of power, we get an extra additional stack of that armor charge. Now, we're going to be using innervation as well as absolution. So when we pick up orbs of power, all ability cooldown goes down a little bit, as well as grenade cooldown. So when we pick up all of those orbs of power that we're creating via every single one of our weapons with those multi-defeats and that Void and Strand Siphon, we're going to get back our grenade specifically fast, as well as just a little top off on all of our abilities as well. Now, last but certainly not least for this build, we're going to have triple bomber on our class item, so we reduce grenade cooldown when using our class ability. So when we cast our rift to create those threadlings and heal, we're going to get a good chunk of our grenade back, which we already got a good chunk from our grenade kickstart anyways, and having that armor charge. So like I said, getting our grenade back super quickly with this build, being able to consume that grenade. You can see on the left side of the screen that it tells you how many of those threadlings you have from consuming your grenade. With the 5 of them, when you shoot a target, it will trace to that target and go and attack them. When you throw down your rift, you're getting 3 of them as well. When you get defeats with your heavy weapon with hatchling here, you're also getting some, and destroying those little strand tangle balls that are around from you getting a defeat on strand affected enemies also creates more threadlings. So these things are absolutely crazy. You are on a warpath with a little army of threadling strand creatures that are going out and doing your dirty work for you, unraveling those enemies and creating even more energy for your abilities, creating orbs of power for you and your fellow allies, as well as heavy ammo. So this is a very fun warlock build for Strand, utilizing those new exotic boots and swarmers. Definitely suggest snagging them from that legendary campaign, going through the lost sectors this season when it is boot day, trying to get that extra pair of boots. So very fun new exotic. We have lots more Strand builds to come, and we're also heading back to our solar and void builds this season as well, since the mod system got a revamp, and solar and void are slapping this season as well. So thank you guys so much for that support. Truly appreciate it. I'll catch y'all in the next one. Peace.